Hello everyone, welcome back to a GT scale modelling video. So today this is going to be at least part one, but probably not the entire thing, but maybe at least part one of the tutorial that I announced I was planning to do a while back now. So this is going to be a tutorial on how I discovered a way to build trees that you can use on dioramas and things. This is predominantly aimed at 35th scale. However, I feel sure that with the amendment of the materials you use, you could well adapt this for other scales. You could apply it to railway scales or other common scale modelling scales if you so wished. So, I say this is my way of doing it because there are many ways to make scale trees. You could just buy them pre-made. And there are many other ways of doing it. This is just a way that I discovered works for me and gave me a result that I personally was incredibly happy with. And considering it was the first time I'd ever done such a thing, and I was a believer at the time that I would probably never quite manage to make such a thing, I was actually really very pleased, and therefore I wanted to just share that with you as an easy way to make trees. And I know it's easy because I managed to do it. So what the end result should or could look like is here. So this is where the other tree I'm going to build for this tutorial will actually end up. Will end up in this slight gap here on this diorama for this Sherman Firefly. Now I know from the top down this tree looks a little weird, so we'll have a little look here, and thankfully this tank is now attached to this base, so it shouldn't fall over. But hopefully here you can see the kind of thing we're going for. Height wise, we're talking this is maybe 7 maybe to 8 inches or so, maybe to the very top. And again, this is all user defined, if you like, so you can make this tree as big or as small as you like. And you'll see that when we get into how this is actually constructed. So this is what we're aiming for. Again, the style of tree you make can be anything. That's the joy of it. It's a technique that lends itself, I believe, to numerous types of trees. Again, just with the substitution or replacement of the colours of things you use, the particular materials will dictate what your final tree looks like. So without further ado, let's pop this away and we'll pop out the materials that we're going to use and we'll go from there. Okay, so lying out here, what we've got is the materials that certainly I used to do my tree, the one we just saw. This is the bit that is going to determine kind of what your tree is almost going to look like by using these or other materials. Now, the way we're generally going to build this tree is the armature for this tree is going to be made from florist wire. Now, this comes in various different gauges, lengths, and all sorts, and so therefore that's partly what's going to dictate what you can make out of your tree. So if you want a bigger tree, you're going to need to get longer bits of wire, or be prepared to potentially add bits of wire together to increase that overall length, which will equate to generally increased height of your tree. The fineness of the wire isn't so much of an issue really, because the finer branches on this tree are actually made from something that actually isn't here, so I'll pop that down just now. Is made from seafoam, which we have here, so I'll just put that. So basically this is seafoam. It's a type of plant, I believe, an actual real plant, but it's dried, and these fine branches here are used to do the fine branches on the actual tree itself. So therefore, what we're using the wire for is building out the base armature of the wire tree, which is going to give us a rough shape and rough branch positions and such like. After that, we then need to cover that wire somehow, and that's where this tutorial might differ from others you've maybe seen before. The whole making trees from wire is really not the new bit, okay? So I'm not even going to really say this is how you should do it. There are plenty of other guides of how to do this online. I will just include it here for the sake of completeness of my process. the main focus on this, and again, it's not a difficult thing, it's just this is the bit I discovered. When I was making this armature before, I wasn't sure how to go about covering up the wire to make what is actually a bunch of twisted wire look like, well, a tree, because obviously that doesn't look like a tree. Now, people who had done it before, making incredibly good trees, they tend to use milliput or other kinds of putties or fillers, and we're sort of wrapping the armature and then sculpting in branches and texture and things like that. I gave it a go, couldn't do it. My sculpting ability is very, very limited. And I then had an idea, as at the time I was doing the groundwork on the diorama you saw a second ago, and was using this. So this is the Vallejo Environment Series weathering effects products, and it's an acrylic based thing, which is good because you can just use a brush, you can wash it off in water, nice and easy to use, dries pretty quick. This stuff also dries rock solid, which is quite an important thing for this. So what it is they do thick mud, they do splash mud and various other things. Now, I found that using the thick mud, you can just paint it on. You just paint it on over the wire armature. It helps fill in that gap. It's got enough substance to it that you can paint it, but it's got enough substance that you can actually, it will fill the gaps between the wire, therefore removing the twisted wire look from your tree. As I said, this stuff dries rock solid as well, so it therefore actually ends up giving your tree quite a lot of rigidity and hard. It makes it quite hard wearing actually. The other advantage is that it's got a slight texture to it. Okay, it's a thick mud product, therefore it's got very, very fine grit or something in it, which gives it a texture, which means that when you put it onto the armature, let it dry, and if you dry brush it up, you've automatically created a simulated bark effect. Maybe it's not as good or as accurate as a skilled sculptor could put into milliput and things, and that's fair enough. But for my purposes, it worked very well, and I was incredibly pleased with the result. And at that scale, at that size, it looks enough like a tree that I was happy enough with it. The other advantage is that it's coloured, of course. So if you so wished, you could probably get away with then not painting this. You could just dry brush straight over this, and effectively that's your base colour. Again, this is where using one of the other thick muds, this is European mud that I decided to use because that's what I had. If you use one of the other ones, they're different colours, therefore if you substitute for one of those, that could well change the look of your tree if you need something a bit different for whatever you're planning. So this is the main sort of difference, if you like, and it's something that maybe I like to claim that I discovered using this for that particular purpose. I may be wrong, but that's what I feel. The other thing that you could use, again you don't have to, is this is Vallejo's Environment again with acrylic, but this is a sort of moss and lichen, so it's quite a liquid, it's almost just liquid sort of pigment I think really, and you can just spot that on here. That works quite well as well for just some of your final finishing things. But again, you could use paint. I just happen to have that as well. So as well as your wire, we've got different gauges here. You'll need something to twist your wire with, you'll need something to cut your wire with, and ultimately at some point later on in the process, once you've got your seafoam on as well, you're going to need to put some kind of foliage on. This is the Javis sort of Railway Scenics stuff. I've got some bigger clump foliage here, not so much what I was looking for at the time, but I have it, you could use it. Or I've got the finer stuff here, and this is what I actually use. Again, you can get many different shades of this, so again, these are the products you're going to substitute depending on the actual final look you wish for your tree. I didn't, but you of course could get some of the leaf punches and all these kind of things, and you could end up creating yourself some cut out leaves if that's the sort of look you wish, but again, not something we'll cover in this, that's up to you. So I'm going to put this away, we'll get some wire out and we'll start making an armature. Okay, so what we've got here is our florist's wire. This stuff I just picked up from the local garden centre. It didn't cost very much. I mean, the packs are not very big, but they only cost, I don't know, less than £1 each or something. So it's a relatively economical way of producing these trees, and a couple of packs will do a couple of trees depending on the size and bushiness you require. Now, unfortunately, I can't actually remember how many bits of wire I used in my previous one, which means that this is a bit of a guess, and I'm looking at this now and thinking this is maybe a few too many, so I'm going to take a few out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. So we'll go for an even amount. So I've got 8 bits of the, so this is 14-inch 20 SWG wire. I think that's the gauge of it. It's not very big. And we've got some 10-inch here as well. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's go for 10 bits of that. Although, yeah. Okay. So we're not going to use the wire at its current length, okay? Because it's too long. That's way too big, and I'm not entirely sure how you would even use it at that length. So the way I did it was you take this, and this is ultimately where these bits of wire dictate how tall your tree can be, because this is 14-inch, and I'm about to fold it in half, which means that clearly the maximum it could ever be is 7, and it's not going to be 7 when it's actually finished, once you've stunted it down. So what we basically do is find roughly the halfway point, clamp it in some pliers, helps if they're all even. Oh, almost perfect, not quite, but it doesn't really matter. So you just bend it in half like this, okay? So we've got this bent in half. So what you're going to do at this point, this is where having some pliers helps. This is where this doesn't work. Sorry if I'm out of shot. You want to put a bit of a twist in at the bottom there, and that helps hold this together. Then you're just going to start twisting. Okay. Now, ideally, you don't really want to twist from the top, because if you twist from the top, that's where your twist is going to be. So what you probably want to do is untwist that a little bit. See if we can get hold of those again. You want to just grab some and start. So you're not really pleating it or anything, but you kind of just want to be starting to twist this wire about. There we go. That's a bit better. Okay. So we've started to twist this together. Now we've got something that looks like this. Doesn't really look like a tree yet. What I'm going to do is take a few of these. Okay. What I'm going to do is start incorporating these thinner ones too. So that's how we can add some height to this tree. Okay. Is by now I'm just kind of going for like one sort of main fork here. Alright, and then we've got a relatively bare trunk up to this point, and then we're going to start branching out the the finer upper branches. Okay, so so what we've ended up with is 3 here, which is a little bit unfortunate, but so we'll take this as the initial main branch. So what we're doing is twist it from where you want. So I want it to twist here and not out here, so holding it here will ensure that this twist stays relatively tight. Okay, so this branch, you can see I'm going to end up with sort of 3 prongs on the end, but I'm okay with that, that's okay. So we'll probably have 1 here, and then we'll carry on the twist on these 2 alone. And this can be trimmed to shorten that down. Okay, so although that's sticking down these, as you can now see, and the other thing is this is entirely posable, so this can have some more natural looking bends put into it. So, but we'll just get the rough shape put in, and then that's more or less our armature. So it shouldn't take too long. Okay, these are a bit long obviously, so I'll probably need to trim those, but it will give us some finer branches coming down this way. And you can incorporate wire in places so that you can extend this to increase the height and things, but this will probably not be too bad. I don't have a huge amount of space left on that diorama, so I don't want it to be too big anyway. So what I'll do is I'll carry on making this armature, because there's no point in you sitting watching. You've seen how basically I'm going to end up doing this, but with the other areas, and we'll come back when that's done. Okay, so after that bit of time-lapse montage, we've got ourselves a wire armature. And I'm not sure exactly how tall this one is. In the end, I'm not too fussed because I don't want it to be particularly taller or shorter. So we're talking maybe 6 inches or so on this one. As I said, when you actually add some of the seafoam, if you stuck a nice sort of bit of tall seafoam off the top of one of these out here, you know, that give you some thinner stuff, you could potentially increase the height a little bit. But as I said, this is the point at which you can really individualize your tree, make it fit with what it is that you are looking for. Now, what you probably want to try and do is just make sure there's no particularly large gaps in. I've just noticed a bit of wire that's sort of in a bit of a loose place, because they're going to be harder to cover up, right? This here that we're going to put on, it's thick enough to cover, but it's not going to, you'll need a few coats to fill some any sort of big gaps. So just maybe try and make sure that your wrapping, your twisting is kind of as tight as possible. The other thing to think about at this point is how you're going to fix this to the bottom, to your diorama. Now in the end, I've got some holes in mine, and what I did last time, I'm going to try and do it again, it was basically use some thicker florist wire I've got here. I can't remember the gauge of it. But this is the kind of thing you could use if you're making a really big tree, but that would be something like, I don't know, a giant tall oak or something. You need a, you want a trunk that's a lot thicker, because once you start twisting this, that's going to get pretty thick. But it works quite well, I think, for making like a bit to stick it in the diorama. Also means you can stick it into some foam while you handle it. So I'm going to try and do this. This is what I did last time. Now, whether it'll work or not again this time, I don't know. Was opened up a bit of a gap here, and basically wedged that in there. And then you can close that back up around here, and then you can trim that to length. Now, what I might actually do just now to help keep that in place is going to run some super glue in there. Now that's just because otherwise that's all a bit loose, and in the end that's to hold your tree up, so you kind of maybe want that bit to be quite secure. So now we have a tree, right? It kind of looks almost like a tree, right? It just looks like a bit of a bare tree. Now it's this point that you can start to get your kind of intended final shape going, and things for it to fit. Now I'm going to leave mine looking relatively flat on one side. Now that's partly because I'm a bit limited for space on that diorama base. Normally, naturally, that would be quite round, but we'll maybe say that you know, these trees have grown up obviously from saplings right next to each other, and due to the competition for light and space, this tree kind of grew more out this way. Otherwise, I don't think I'm going to fit this on my diorama base. So that's already kind of dry. So there we go. Nice tree. So what we're going to do is, if I just clear out my, so you can see here where it is the last one, polystyrene block. That's actually a bit long, so I'm just going to trim that because it doesn't need to be quite that long. There we go. So we have a tree. Okay, so next stage basically is going to be to take our Vallejo thick mud, and you just want to paint it on. So it's as simple as that. Check how much I've got in there. Find ourselves a brush, and yeah, you just taking it and you're just painting it on. It's really as easy as this. Now, working it into all the nooks and crannies, and now in the end, while this stuff will fill all the gaps in, you will probably find that you're going to need to do a couple of coats, because what's going to happen is there's an actual stick in that bit that could come out. What's going to happen is, of course, on the edges where you're painting this on, where you're dabbing it into the gaps, you're still going to see the green wire poking through a little bit to start with. So it's really just a case of working your way up the tree and filling in all these gaps here. And again, once it's dry after the first layer, you will be able to identify areas you're going to have to put a second coat on. But that's the idea there. Okay, so already I think, whether you agree or not, it's up to you, but I think even at this stage you can see how that's going to give the impression of bark when that's dry. So we'll carry on with this. You'll not need to watch me. That's basically the same process all the way up. Quite often I will stick it on, I will put it right to the very edges, and actually once it's dry on these bits here that are very straight at the moment, they do really quite look like little thin branches at the time. They're quite straight, so what I'll probably do is just give each one a slight bend, because nothing in nature is that straight. Okay. So I'll probably do another little time-lapse bit here, and you'll just see me painting up this, and we'll be back when that's done and dry. Okay. Okay, so coming back now, we've got the mud on the tree. Sounds a bit weird, but yep, we've got the Vallejo thick mud put on there. Hopefully you'll be able to see this, but there's obviously some areas like here where there's green wire still showing through, and up on here on the thinner parts. That's okay, that's to be expected. This stuff is will fill those gaps in, but maybe not necessarily in the first pass. So what we're going to do just now is we'll leave this to dry up, and we'll look at it then, and we'll touch up the areas that need to be touched up. It's also quite good because it means if you've got branches here that you're a bit, oh, do you know what, that's a little bit thin. Once you get another wee layer or two of that on, it can help bulk those out. And as you can see, these bits start to look a lot less like wire. So I think what we'll do is we'll call that for part one. We've got up to the stage where we've now got something that is in the shape of a tree, and it's already starting to look less like wire. So next time we'll come back, I'll probably have touched up this, and so what we'll maybe do is next time we come back, we'll see the tree as it looks like with the mud on it dry, and that'll be the look that we have before starting to then paint it and things. I actually did paint the other one because I wasn't overly happy with the shade of it. So it allows you to do other things, like if you were, say, making a silver birch or something. Of course, they're not that brown. So we will come back to the point where we're ready to get some paint on this, get a colour, and then we'll be ready to start adding the sea foam. Not a difficult task, just a bit tedious. Once that's done, we'll be ready to sprinkle on our bit of foliage, and then that's pretty much it. So it's a relatively simple process, which is surprising because it's something that I thought would be incredibly difficult, which is why I hadn't made one before, obviously. So this is where we're up to. Thanks for watching part one here. I really hope that you'll come back for part two, and I hope if you're somebody who's viewed my channel for a while, that actually this is something you're liking. It's a bit different for all my channel. Hopefully we'll be able to do some more sort of things like this in the future maybe. And if you like what you're seeing and you haven't already, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel. We'll try and grow it, get some more stuff going. Alright, thanks for watching. We'll see you in part two whenever that's out. Thanks, bye for now.